In this lesson, we'll create the relationship between users. We can enforce bi-directional like Facebook friends or unidirectional like Twitter followers. We'll do the second to simplify the code. The first thing we're going to do is create the relationship module on the root of the QuartFeed app folder. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll create an init.py so that it's marked as a Python module. And then we'll create the models.py, and let's start working on that. Okay, first we need some modules from the SQL Alchemy library. So we're going to import column, table, integer, and foreign key. Then, as we did on the user models, we're going to import the metadata object from the DB module, which allows us to expose or introspect the different models when we do migrations. Next, we'll create a relationship table, and we'll call that the relationship table within PostgreSQL. We pass the metadata, and then we'll create a column ID, which is the primary key, as we've done in the other model, on the user model. And then we're going to create two foreign keys that are pointing to the user ID. And this is something that is quite interesting because we have two foreign keys pointing at the same thing. Now, the rationale behind this is that we are going to be using this relationship record to point from one user to another, but the type of record that we're going to have there are user IDs in both cases. So it's not uncommon, or it's not weird to do this at all, having two fields on a model that point to the same foreign key. At the end of the day, they're just pointers. So what this relationship record is going to say is user A is following user B, but we only have the user IDs in that record. Okay, so let's save this file. And now the next step is going to be getting the relationship model into the migrations env.py as we did in the past. So we're going to go to migrations env.py, and here in where it says user models, we're going to add from relationship models import relationship table. And that way the migrations is going to introspect or know about the relationship table so that we can do migrations on this. You might notice that there's some squiggly red lines in here, and this is MyPy kind of checking things for us. And so we don't like to have these files that have a red here with some issues. And we can see the issues if you open the terminal and then go to the problems tab. It'll list all the problems that it's seeing. So let's see if we can fix that. So this one here says that the argument has incompatible type optional string, and it's expecting something else. That is within config, which is part of the Alembic. So this context is part of Alembic, I believe. Context py, let's see. Yeah, this is on Alembic side. So I think that for this one, we're going to add something that is ignore the typing, because there's some packages that unfortunately don't have typing built in, and sometimes if you upgrade the package, you'll get those resolved. Sometimes you have to install extra packages, like there might be an Alembic typing module or something like that. So, but we're gonna add the type ignore here, and the way you do that is you just put type ignore, and that error should go away. Now you don't want to do this all the time, but there are times when you want to like use it, and it's fine. The next thing here is it says that it's looking for an expected string, and the thing with OS environment get is that we're going to get either the DB username or an empty string if this is not set. So we can put a default value here and put quote quote. However, I think that this error is more telling us that this is a required thing, because otherwise, if this is not present, we're not going to be able to do anything with the migration. So I'm going to do it as like this. So it's going to actually require that the config is passed. Now let me see if that clears the error. Okay, so that takes care of it. So that's a good sign. I think sometimes you want to enforce that, yes, this will throw an error if there's no DB username, but there's no instance where we're not gonna have a DB username if we're doing migrations. So let's do the other one. Now it's saying that function is missing a return type annotation. This is true. Like any function has to have at least a return type, and if it has parameters, those should be typed. So we're gonna just say this returns none, which I believe it's true. There's no return at the end of this. So that takes care of that. And then the same thing with the run migrations online. Okay, and we have a nice looking no squiggly lines files. And I know it's a bit of a pain to do this every time, but it's totally worth it. I try to think of it as a game of like get all the squiggly lines out of the file, and it just looks so beautiful when it's like all clean code. So let's save the file, and now we can do the migration. And before you do the migration, just remember to have the container for the Postgres database running, because remember this goes against the database. So if you open a terminal, we're going to issue a command for the migration. So we do that by doing the following: poetry run alembic revision -- auto generate -m, which is the message, create relationship table. Press enter. Okay, now we need to check that the versions file was created, and indeed it is. And if we check that, we're gonna see different upgrades and downgrade sections. And this is interesting. Now these files are not MyPy compatible, so we might as well do returns none. I don't think this is gonna affect anything when we run the actual migration. And since we're here, let's fix this previous one. So we have that ready. Make sure to save it, and then on the terminal we're gonna do poetry run alembic upgrade head. Perfect. So now that created the relationship table in the database. Okay, if we want to check now that the relationship table was created on Postgres, we can do it two ways. One is if you have the Docker extension for VS Code, you can attach a shell, and then you can run psql postgres-u app user, and that will log you into the instance database or Postgres database. Another way, and if you have VS Code again, you can run a task. I've added it on the VS Code configuration, and you just do Command-Shift-P. You type run task, and it'll show this like task run task, and then you select login to Docker Postgres container. You can continue without scanning the task output, and that runs this command. Now this command is also like if you don't have the VS Code, or you don't want to use the Docker extension, you run docker exec it, and that rest of that command, and it'll log you in. But anyways, a couple of ways to log in. Now if we do a /l, we'll see that the there's an app database there. So we do connect. So to do that, we're gonna do /c app, and now we're connected to the app database, and we can see a list of the tables by doing \dt, and as you can see, the relationship table was created. Now, if we want to check the contents of the table, we can do the describe command and do describe relationship. And now that shows that it has the column ID, the from user ID, and to user ID. And there's these 2 foreign keys to the user ID. So that worked perfectly fine. And we're ready to continue doing our work with the relationship module.